Hello everyone, welcome back to a very special video. I'm DTM as always, and yes, you did read that right. Vital Astra is indeed inheritable. Honestly, this came as a shock to me, as I'm sure it did for a lot of people, but because it is inheritable, now would be a great time to discuss who exactly uses Vital Astra the best, and how to best utilize Vital Astra and all of its effects. And as always, if you like the content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that jazz to help support the channel. This video took a while to make, and I would really appreciate you all taking 5 seconds to subscribe. It truly does help support this channel a lot, and I really do appreciate it. But yeah, so Vital Astra. So for those who are unawares, Vital Astra is a new 500 SP skill that has a cooldown count of 2. It is a special skill that boosts the damage by 30% of your speed. And in addition to that, if the special is active before combat, it grants the dodge effect, up to 30% damage reduction for AoEs based on the speed difference between you and your foe, and up to 30% in combat based on the speed difference of you and your foe. And yeah, this has all the markings of a preference special, so it was really surprising to see this be as inheritable. And so the way you want to use Vital Astra in order to maximize its effects is to have it consistently pre-charged. So effects and things that helps with that are very synergistic with Vital Astra. So things like slaying effects in the weapon, or skills like Special Spiral or Times Pulse, those sorts of effects and skills will be needed in order to maximize the potential for Vital Astra, because otherwise Vital Astra does face competition from similar 2-turn specials like Ruptured Sky. But I mean, regardless, it is a consistent damage boost at the end of the day for a lot of units, especially ones with a lot of speed. And so all in all, like, even without the damage reduction portion, you should be able to get consistent damage output based on your speed, which is very valuable. Maybe not valuable enough to specifically summon or spend orbs for, but still, it's a new shiny toy that we can use to help our favorite units. So with Vital Astra, there's really 3 main build types or archetypes that I see working with Vital Astra. The first is simply to use it as a damaging special like Ruptured Sky, and treat the damage reduction as just a little cherry on top, just something that not to be relied on, but hey, if it somehow procs, nice, it's a little bit extra. The other archetype, I guess, is to unit on units that have Special Spiral. That way you can consistently pre-charge it to always be active at the start of combat. Unfortunately, this build does require you to use that B slot for Special Spiral, so you can't run things like No Follow-Up, or like Spurn, or a Lull. But this is an option for units in general, and I think can pretty much work for any unit. And the third build type that I see are units with slaying effects in their weapons. Because Vital Astra has a cooldown count of 2, slaying reduces that to 1, so you can run Times Pulse to get that to 0 at the start of the turn. Now this does only really work consistently for the first combat in a turn, but it does allow you to be able to pre-charge that special without having to give up a B slot. And yeah, I'll go over the pros and cons for each of those archetypes as we go into more detail. So yeah, the first one is basically the simplest. Just use it in place of Moonbow, Glimmer, or Ruptured Sky. Like, it doesn't get any simpler than that. If you have a build that has Moonbow, Glimmer, or Ruptured Sky on it, boom. Vital Astra is a worthy addition, as long, of course, as the unit you're using it on is fast. And this is basically a sample build with Yanfei. Yanfei is a fairly popular merge project, and hey, stacking damage reduction is pretty neat. Although, it is important to note that damage reduction stacks multiplicatively, not additively. So the actual damage reduction is somewhere around 58%, I believe, at max value. But again, you aren't going to be relying on the damage reduction effect of Vital Astra, because again, there's no consistent way to pre-charge it or anything like that. So it's just a little extra. If it happens to be up, cool. You can factor that in as you go. Obviously, this is a huge opportunity cost for using Vital Astra just for the damaging part and not, the entirety of its effect. So it won't be quote-unquote optimal, and it won't be able to maximize this special to its fullest potential, especially considering that I would assume most players would only have 1, maybe max 2 copies of Vital Astra, and so I feel like fodder utility-wise, there's a lot better specials that you can, not necessarily better, but other specials that you can use in place of Vital Astra, like maybe Ruptured Sky from the Divine Codes 2, and you can use Vital Astra more effectively on another unit. This, again, is a sample build, pretty much an arena build for Yanfei. The C slot is flexible to an extent, and obviously if you are going to run this in arena, you would replace the reposition with Rally Plus or Rally Up Plus. But yeah, this is obviously being used as a tank, but an alternative would be to use this on a more player phase unit for that damage. Alm here being fast and being able to run Times Pulse, even though he doesn't have Slaying. If he doubles, he'll be able to proc that Vital Astra. And again, this is just using that Vital Astra for the damaging part in a more player phase oriented way, as opposed to more enemy phase that Yanfei was. But again, Moonbow, Ruptured Sky, Glimmer, those sorts of specials can suffice just as well. So honestly, not worth summoning or foddering Vital Astra. But I mean, if you have your favorite unit, you can definitely use Vital Astra just like that, as long as it's fast. And hey, it will probably be an upgrade, even if it is not as big as all of the effects could offer. So the second build archetype that I see you can use Vital Astra for is using Special Spiral. This allows you to consistently pre-charge Vital Astra after every combat, making it a reliable source of damage reduction that again is always up after the combat. Of course, you have to set this up initially somehow, and you need to get it to proc either as part of the first combat of the battle, or using units like Raphael or Valoria or things like that, but obviously that relies on support and could potentially use up team slots, which isn't exactly optimal. And of course, the big glaring caveat to using Special Spiral is that you have to run Special Spiral on the B slot, which means you lose out on the huge amount of potential B slot options you can run, especially no follow-up. No follow-up is the big one, and honestly, I wouldn't recommend using a Vital Astra in a Special Spiral build. But as an example, I do have Mass Marth here, who, by the way, because of Sealed Falchion's weapon refine, preventing the units from being able to follow-up attack, that combined with Quick Riposte 3 gives Mass Marth a pseudo no follow-up effect, where it's not exactly no follow-up, but it's essentially no follow-up. So she's actually free to run Special Spiral and not have to worry about no follow-up, and rely on Vital Astra for that damage reduction. I run something similar for OG Lucina, except using Spurn on the B with Noontime as a special. In this case, Vital Astra is providing that Spurnish effect, and Special Spiral just constantly keeps it pre-charged. So it's basically like a one combat nuke, essentially. So you can even replace Quick Riposte, actually, with like Attack Speed Solo or something like that. And again, the C slot is flexible. Personally, I wouldn't recommend it. I prefer the Spurn Noontime build myself on my OG Lucina, but this is an option not only for Mass Marth, but for a lot of other units as well that do not have slaying effects in their weapons. Just be mindful that you can't run no follow-up, and honestly is probably not really consistent enough. Or the fact that you can't run no follow-up is a big disadvantage, and giving up that B slot is a big disadvantage. So that is just something you need to keep in mind. But hey, Mass Marth can actually use this and not lose out on a pseudo-ish no follow-up effect. So props to Mass Marth and other Steel Falchion users. So yeah, obviously not the most optimal use case, but the units that actually can use Vital Astra really well are units with slaying weapons, either in their preference weapons or can somehow get that cooldown count to 0 in their weapons. Slaying plus Times Pulse will make sure that Vital Astra is pre-charged at the start of every turn, and this is very consistent, and in addition retains the B slot, so you can open that up for no follow-up, or maybe a lull if you're into that, or any other B slot option. And so I see this as the biggest use case for Vital Astra. So as an example, Ira here, Ira has slaying effect that reduces the cooldown count to -1, so to 1, and then Times Pulse reduces that down 1 further to 0, so at the start of every turn, it will be pre-charged. Now, the caveat to this is that it may not be up for all combat in a turn. It's only up guaranteed at the start of the turn. So, say if an enemy engages on you and you attack with the Vital Astra proc and you one-shot that enemy, that means that for the next combat during that turn, Ira, for example, won't actually have that special up, and therefore you won't actually get the damage reduction for potentially the rest of the combats. And so, yeah, in modes where you basically tank a lot of units in one turn, like Ether Raids, I wouldn't recommend this, but for something like Summoner's Duels, where most units only enter combat once per turn, this could be an option, especially for like a raid boss strategy. And so yeah, Ira here is probably a good example of a premium unit that can use this well. Another unit that is more F2P friendly is actually Marissa. Marissa not only has slaying in her weapon, she actually also has Times Pulse in her weapon as well. So she doesn't even need to run Times Pulse on the C skill, so that opens that up to things like Pulse Smoke, or Joint Drive Attack, Joint Drive Speed. Again, the C, or even like budget options like Speed Smoke, or any other type of smokes. Again, the C here is flexible for Marissa. I mean, obviously, if you're not Marissa, you have to run Times Pulse, but for Marissa, you can run all kinds of things. And Shamshir, I apologize if I mispronounced that, can just handle keeping Vital Astra charged at the beginning of the turn. Again, this doesn't help if there's multiple combats in the turn, but I just wanted to mention that Marissa is a very good F2P unit that can use Vital Astra really well. Now, if we're going to enter into more meme categories, Legendary Dimitri, since he does have Slaying on Arid Bar, can run Vital Astra, and with Times Pulse gets that pre-charge. That, in addition to the damage reduction in his weapon, and the potential to run damage reduction in the B skill, gives like 75% damage reduction, which is kind of ridiculous. I say this is a meme because realistically, 75% damage reduction is complete overkill for a unit like Legendary Dimitri, and if he somehow gets outsped, all that gets reduced to 0 damage reduction, and you're giving up on Atrocity, which is what makes Legendary Dimitri unique and actually a good unit, and also is required to score optimally in Arena, that alongside with a 300 SP C skill. And so I personally would never run this build on Legendary Dimitri, But hey, if you want a meme 75% damage reduction build on like other modes, like maybe Summoner Duels or something, it could work. Maybe. Probably not. Don't you do that. But yeah, those I feel are the main uses for Vital Astra. Let me know down in the comments if you have any uses for Vital Astra you can think of that I've missed in this video. I would love to read all of your ideas. I guess in conclusion, Vital Astra is definitely a very interesting special, but for me personally, I wouldn't spend orbs or summon for, because realistically, there's only a very few units that can utilize Vital Astra to its fullest effects. Like, you need to have Slaying, you need to be able to pulse that down to 1 or 0 with a times pulse effect, and after combat also times pulse it down to 1 again. And so actually the best user of Vital Astra is Ascendant Merida herself, because she has the Slaying, she has the times pulse, and she has the mini special spiral, and all that combined allows Merida to maximize the use of Vital Astra. And so for me personally, like, the opportunity cost is just not there for me to use Vital Astra on any other unit when other specials like Ruptured Sky or cheaper options like Glimmer, Moonbow, or maybe Noontime if you want to sustain are sufficient options enough. And as a general rule of thumb, you never really want to spend orbs on fodder to begin with. Generally you can make do with whatever you have in your barracks, but Vital Astra is a very new special, and I do want to talk about the potential builds that you can run with it, even if they're not the most optimal. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, if you enjoy the content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that jazz to help support the channel. This video took a while to make, so I would really appreciate you all taking 5 seconds to subscribe. Really does help support this channel a lot. And yeah, let me know if you have some unique builds that I've missed. And yeah, hopefully you all enjoyed. Don't get baited, because AHR is right around the corner. And see you all next time. Thank you, everyone.